Hello retro movie fans, my name is Retro Movie Girl, and today I have for you a bit of a different video. I've talked about all kinds of books on this channel as far as the romance genre goes. So I would like to talk about a subgenre of romance. This is one video in a new playlist I'm calling my favorite subgenre, or why I like ... which means anything that I like as far as reading or whatever can go into this playlist. So let's just get started. The first thing I would like to talk about is mail order bride stories. They seem to be all over the place, especially on Audible. And oh, by the way, I will put all the authors that I mention, I'll put any way to contact them if they have a website, or if you can find the book in paperback. I'll put that down in the description section as well, so that you'll be able to contact them or read their books on Audible or in paperback editions. The first one I would like to talk about is Her Quiet Nurturer. This one is very unusual because it's written by a man named George H. McVey. Now, these run the gamut from very sexy to Christian type of books. So, Her Quiet Nurturer is a Christian romance. It revolves around Glenn and Virginia. Glenn works and lives in the sanctuary, in a place called Sanctuary. And he has ordered a mail order bride named Lila. Unfortunately, he was rejected by Lila, and Lila married his brother instead. But this is the story of how he came to know Virginia. Virginia was a bride that was ordered by the deputy's assistant, and later on he finds out that Virginia is supposed to be the property of another man, becomes upset, confronts Virginia, and it doesn't turn out very well, and she's left crying in the street. Glenn rescues her and teaches her what it is like to be really loved. Throughout the time that I've been reading romance novels, you hear things about romance novels, like you hear words like mommy porn. You hear phrases like mommy porn, that they're just fluff, that they don't really matter. But Her Quiet Nurturer and other books just like it deal with domestic violence. Virginia is a victim of domestic violence, and she thinks that no other man will treat her very well. Her husband was abusive. The man that wants to take her back to Chicago is abusive. And several different things have happened to Virginia by some points in the story. But there's a lot of other different stories. Like, for example, another example that talks about domestic violence, not loosely, but it talks about it. I want to say that this is historic romance. So at this time, it was very unusual for people to talk about domestic violence. Domestic violence just happened. If it happened, it isn't like today where anybody can speak out or anybody can say anything, because it was different back then. But there's another book called Mail Order Mama by Kirsten Osbourne. Kirsten Osbourne talks about she uses her character, the matchmaker, as an example of domestic violence. She also talks about it in Suitors of Seattle. She lets the daughters of these rich people work in a domestic violence shelter, and they understand what domestic violence is, and they understand that if they need to get out. They've had a lot of characters and a lot of in these two series, because Kirsten is responsible for two series. She's responsible for The Brides of Beckham, part of The Brides of Beckham. She's responsible for that series. And she's also responsible for the Suitors of Seattle. In the Suitors of Seattle, the 8 daughters of this family work at different times. They work at a women's shelter. This is a place where, as you know, women, if they're being abused or hunted by their husbands, can come stay there. It's a safe place for them to stay. At this time, it was unusual or unheard of for women, especially in larger circles, to stay away from their husbands. People were abusive, just like they are now. People were abusive back then, and they needed a place to go. So the Suitors of Seattle discussed this, and the brides of Beckham all the brides are told that if your husband doesn't treat you well, if he beats you, I will get you a ticket home. And it's very, very important that people know and understand that it's out there. It's been prevalent for a very long time. But these books help facilitate an understanding as much as you can, get an understanding from what is historical fiction. So I like the mail order bride stories. There's even some by Cynthia Woolf that are a little bit more risque, a little bit more spicier. They run the gamut from Christian to science fiction, so you're not going to have a problem finding one. And I will find some that are science fiction and find out who the authors are and place their websites or where you can find their books, so that you can gain a better understanding of why I like this genre, because it can run the gamut. Just like everything else, this genre, or subgenre as they call it, can run the gamut. And I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope that if you find any more mail order bride stories like the one I've mentioned, that you mention them to me in the comments so I can get in on the fun too. And I'll talk to you in my very next video. Bye.